Welcome to Planetary Calendar. This is the forecast for March 2018. I'm Ralph, and this is Lonnie D'Amicus.
And I'm going to get to read the forecast for March. On the 1st, we begin with a full moon and the sun in Pisces conjunct Neptune. There are global ramifications and spiritual imperatives afoot. A beautiful trine between exalted Venus in Pisces and Jupiter in Scorpio shows power expressing compassionate action. On the 5th, Mercury enters aggressive Aries, followed by Venus on the 6th. During the expressive Sun-Moon trine, so expect turbulence, and you can use that to your advantage, like shaking up a stuck situation. On the 8th, Jupiter turns retrograde, slowing that optimism, and on the 10th, that black box day is a period when things feel clamped down, so just coast. Because on the 11th, you will have a better sense of which way things are going. On the 13th, you can get a lot done, but be prepared to make some deals. The new moon on the 17th, when Mars enters his exalted sign of Capricorn, as the honored guest, denotes a driven time with the sun conjunct both the moon and Chiron, the wounded healer. Coincidentally, Venus conjuncts Mercury in Aries, sharing the sign with Uranus, which is trine a supercharged Mars and Vesta in Sagittarius. This is the time to focus on self-healing. It is okay to put yourself first sometimes. The 20th is the vernal equinox, the first day of spring, with the moon nicely aspected in lovely Taurus, making it for an emotionally satisfying day. But don't get complacent. Mercury turns retrograde on the 22nd in rambunctious Aries to throw a wrench into the works. So expect electronics and travel to get glitchy. The black box day on the 24th is a day of squares, so you can accomplish a great deal, but everything's going to take more time and work. By the 26th, things smooth out, even if Mercury is unhelpful. On the 28th, the multitude of positive aspects to the moon and Venus, coupled with exciting Uranus, could spark love at first sight, instant friendships, and sudden relationship changes. Venus entering the ruling sign of Taurus on the 30th, so spend more time cooking and loving. The full moon on the 31st shows a softening of the intense drive that dominated the early part of the year, allowing some ease and time for personal passions.
So it's a very interesting year. Got some good stuff, some bad stuff, a lot of coasting in between.
You know, in all of my communications with all of our calendar friends and our personal friends, I keep saying, 2018 just looks like an exciting year. So you're right, ups and downs, and it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, I think that when Jupiter goes retrograde, Jupiter moved into Scorpio at the end of 2017. It's been chugging along, and wherever Jupiter goes, people notice. And now, a few months into the year, it's about to go retrograde. It's going to backtrack over territory that you already covered. And remember, this is still Jupiter in Scorpio. This is a planet that's saying expand your ability to use cooperative power.
Yeah, I like that. Scorpio, we call it, in our feng shui work, we call it the helpful people section, because there's nothing more helpful than the combined use of your personal power. Your personal power is one thing, but when you combine it with other people, and one of the examples that we give is when you vote. Voting is an example of using your scorpionic power, because it multiplies as you connect it with other people.
Exactly. And I think it's very interesting, too, that, the moon starts off with the full moon. The month starts with the full moon. A month and moon, of course, are related words for a very obvious reason. But on the 5th and the 6th, you have first Mercury enter Aries and then Venus enter Aries. And think of these as two speed bumps. So you're at the full moon, and you're really charged up, and you're just cruising downhill towards the new moon, and you get to the 5th and the 6th, and you go, da-dum, da-dum. So slow down. Take a little time. Whenever these inner planets change signs, you will feel it, and it creates a little bit of turbulence. Now, on the 6th, what's interesting is that the sun is trine the moon. This is always a nice time to get things done, because people are kind of in a harmonious way, and this is the trine between the sun in Pisces, you know, dreamy Pisces, inspirational Pisces, and the moon in Scorpio.
A nice water trine.
Right. Now, it may be a profound day. And I say that because Moon in Scorpio is a deep position. The Moon in Scorpio is not considered a strong position for the Moon, but it's very deep. It goes deeply into the emotions. And Venus is entering Aries,
That's what I was looking at.
one of its weakest positions, because it's opposite the ruler. The ruler, of course, one of the rulers is Libra. This is the sign opposite. So people's emotions make it very self-centered.
And Venus isn't used to being in a headstrong kind of
Right.
sign like that. Venus is always like, well, what do you want to do? Oh,
Right.
no, what do you want to do? You know, and this time, you know, as Venus goes into Aries, it's like, oh, no, it's all about me. So it's kind of finding her fit into this, you know, this watery world.
And just to make it worse in terms of that, Mercury's right there, egging you on, you know, and the people will feel there's going to be a tendency when Venus changes sign for people, especially with strong Aries in their chart, to really feel like, what's in it for me? What's my pleasure? What's my enjoyment? And they're going to be really inclined to listen to advice from people saying, yeah, that's what you should do. So if that's what you need to do, and we're not saying you don't need to do that, then definitely go ahead with it. But on the other hand, if you find that it's starting to stimulate some arguments, be a little more cautious, because, you know, Aries can really stir things up.
Well, and I think that the fact that Mars is going to be going into Capricorn on the 17th will calm that down a little bit, because Mars is the natural ruler of Aries. So Mars has an influence on both Venus and Mercury during this time as they are moving into Aries. And then Mars takes kind of the fatherly position by moving into Capricorn and saying, but, you know, calm down, relax, think it through, get it done.
Yeah. Now, the following weekend, the 10th and 11th, it's funny, on one day it's a black box day, and the next thing it's a white circle day. What it's really saying is that this is going to be one of the weekends when you really want to pay attention. You know, don't go, you know, dozing on it here, because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening. You know, when you get a black box day, that means there's a lot of pressure to get things done. In that case, it's Mercury square Saturn. So it actually would be a great day for doing like serious planning towards a task, because you can get a few people in the room and really sit down and maybe look at the numbers and figure out, you know, what did we spend last year? What do we want to spend this year? Where do we want to go to? And then on Sunday, the moon is still in Capricorn, but you have all these nice aspects: the sun sextile the moon, the sun sextile Pluto, Mars trine Uranus. Go out to brunch. You know, all the people we worked with the day before, you go out to brunch the next day, you know, and spend some time smoothing the feathers, don't you think?
Well, and it could be a working brunch, because
Yeah.
I think that these kind of powerful change agent kind of, especially that Mars trine Uranus, you know, it could be that opportunity to launch an opportunity to someone that you're anticipating a business relationship with, or to launch something innovative or a new innovation. If you're in technology, it may also be a good day. You know, Sunday doesn't matter in the technology world.
Right.
You know, you can do your launch on any day of the week. So, you know, it might be that power brunch.
I think we should put this on our schedule for that. That, you know, what first
Yeah.
day we'll look at the numbers. Second day we'll sit down and do the long range planning.
I like it, but, you know, make sure you set your clocks forward, because it's daylight savings times begin. And remember that these influences aren't just narrowed down to a single day. They do have some spillover, but it probably won't spill over too far into Monday the 12th, because we've got to avoid a course for a good part of the work day there. So, like I said, you know, do the power brunch on Sunday.
Exactly. Now, on the following week, on the 17th, on that Saturday, is the new moon, and this is kind of an interesting one too, because on the same day as the new moon, Mars enters Capricorn, and this is what's called the exalted position, the honored guest's position, where they're just treated wonderfully. And Mars loves to be treated wonderfully. He doesn't get that very often. Of course, he gets it in Capricorn, you know, the most restrictive of signs. And it's kind of a way of saying, you know, here's new armor for you, or here's a new sword, or here's something solid. You know, it's a solid type of reward. So whenever a planet goes into rulership, it becomes kind of the king of the roost to a certain extent, you know. And if it's Venus in a feminine sign and rulership, Venus in Taurus or Venus in Pisces, well, the same thing. She becomes the queen for the period of time, because who's ever in most rulership tends to have a lot of say in terms of how things run. And so, starting on the 17th, you will find there's a great ability to get practical things done. There's going to be a lot of energy for it, and you should use it that way.
Well, and that's what I said about when Mars goes into Capricorn. It takes the ranking status and pulls the reins in a little bit on Venus and Mercury, who have maybe run a little bit out of line in Aries when they first transferred into that. But it's interesting to note that Mars is still in Sagittarius when it's broaching that nice business opportunity with with Uranus there on the 11th on that white circle day. So then the implementation happens when he moves into Capricorn.
Exactly. And then in some ways, this is a little bit like having, you know, Mars kind of go ahead and prepare the ground for you, because on the 20th is the spring equinox, the first day of spring. Well, when the sun goes into Aries, this is considered the exaltation position of the sun. It's the returning of the light. It's a very strong position for the sun. So now you have the sun in exaltation and Mars in exaltation, and Mars is ruled by Aries, or rules Aries. So you have kind of a bit of a mutual reception going on here between the two.
And then apparently Mercury really, really likes Aries because he goes retrograde on the 22nd. He doesn't want to leave.
He doesn't want to leave.
So he's still going to hang there, but now he's going to be hanging with the sun. So the sun is the other dad of the zodiac. So at least, you know, he'll have some direction and some focus and some tutelage.
So now you've got Mercury, Venus, and the sun all in Aries, and then you have Mars in Capricorn in exaltation. This is a great time for personal initiative, for getting things done, for, you know, be willing if, you know, it might be necessary to raise your voice now and then and to feel okay about it. Just don't hit anybody, you know.
I would say with Aries, that it was a good time for getting things started, except for the fact that the Mars is going to be in Capricorn, so that is the part that contributes to getting things done too.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's got stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
You know, Capricorn is willing to do the work over a long period of time, and this is one of the reasons why Mars is exalted there, because Mars has that energy, the physical energy. You put it in Capricorn. It's a feminine sign, so it's that ability to use the feminine energy of it. And remember that the feminine ruler of Mars is Scorpio, which is a sextile to Capricorn. So it's that ability to manage, work cooperatively with other people, manage things, and be ambitious. And it's a very strong position for Mars. People with Mars and Capricorn have tremendous physical endurance for their
stamina,
work. Yeah.
right?
And getting them to not work is the hard part. So, and then on the 24th, we have a black box day, just because.
Well, we've got those two big squares, the Sun
Yeah.
square Moon, Sun square Mars.
Yeah.
You know, you want those kinds of dynamic energies working together, not at loggerheads. So that's why we put the black box there.
I think it would be a great day for like a home project. Okay, but plan it out really, really well. But it would be a great day for a home project, you know, that's been well planned up, because you're going to have a lot of energy. You're going to want to get stuff done. It's kind of a hard day to just take off and chill, because with all those squares there, the desire to get something done is pretty strong.
And at home, because the moon, of course, changes into Cancer on
exactly.
midday, so
Exactly.
or in early morning. I mean,
Exactly.
So,
and then on the 28th is a white circle day. It's got just all kinds of lovely things going on.
well, it's Venus. You know, I mean,
yeah.
a parallel is not usually one of the things that we really feature when we are taking into account what makes up with a white circle day. But because Venus is well aspected to the moon, Venus is parallel Uranus and conjunct Uranus, it gives that added power to Venus. And we just think it can be a day to innovate and you know, think of really new ideas, and Venus is so well positioned there that we gave it a white circle day, along with the fact that the moon is well aspected to Mars, Saturn, and Uranus as well. So.
Exactly, and we tagged it as love at first sight. This is the 28th of March. Love at first sight. But this will actually go for several days from maybe the 27th to the 29th because it's based upon Venus conjunct Uranus. Uranus is sudden changes, things kind of arriving out of the blue. Venus is Venus. Now it's Venus in Aries. And so it really supercharges that. And so love at first sight, it really is the kind of thing of people just going, whoa, the thunderbolt. So on the other hand, be careful driving and don't drink too much. Okay.
Then, of course, Venus enters Taurus on the 30th. So she's already kind of getting ready to move into Taurus. And that's a sign of rulership for her. It's the feminine rulership sign of Venus.
Food and
it's
dinner.
all about,
flowers.
Food and indulgence and flowers and beauty and all of that. So she's already getting ready for that on that White Circle day. So she's happy, I think, to be moving out of Aries and into her element.
And then we have the second full moon of the month on the 31st. So
we told you, exciting.
And this is the Libra Aries full moon, which is a pretty dynamic full moon because these are what are called the cardinal signs. Cardinal signs are the ones that get things moving, and either through partnership or through personal initiative, and have the full moon right there. Right after Venus moved into Taurus, and then with the moon into Libra, because Libra is the other ruling sign of Venus. So both of the ruling signs, the male and female signs, are both right there. So once you have love at first sight during the middle of the week, someone's going to be calling for the weekend.
Well, and so all the inner planets are in really strong positions, except for that Mercury, who's retrograde in Aries, which, when Mercury's in Aries, retrograde can only help.
Right.
Although, he can act out a little bit with that
someone's got to be out to
retrograde.
Lunch.
Exactly.
Someone's got to be out to lunch.
But Mars is in a strong position. The Sun is in a fire sign, so it's in a strong position. Venus is in a very strong position. Mars is in a strong position.
And Mars is in a happy position related to Venus now because they're trined by sign.
Right.
Both in earth signs, practical stuff.
Right.
I definitely think dinners and flowers.
Saturn's also in rulership.
Oh yes,
so,
Saturn's in rulership. Yes, people will be thinking about when people think about romantic things, they also will be thinking about love things. Now, it's interesting, too. We mentioned about the 17th being such an interesting day. We're actually teaching a workshop that day. We're teaching our workshop on the sacred geometry of prosperity to the National Council for Geocosmic Research in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
So hopefully we'll get one of the part of that episode or something about that onto our TV show, Ask Ralph and Lonnie. You can watch it there.
That'll be fun.
So I think that's it for the forecast.
So we're looking forward to March. We hope you are too. And join us again for another episode of Ralph and Lonnie at Planetary Calendar. Yep. So it's Ralph and Lonnie back with another minute or 10 on Astro Tips. And so we're going to talk a little bit about rulerships and what rulerships mean.
Yeah. Rulerships are all about how the planets use a sign well or not so well or just downright poorly. And each one of the major planets, and by the major planets out to Saturn, have two signs that relate to them. And that does not include the sun and the moon, which are not considered planets. The sun and the moon are considered lights. I always love that. But the planets each have a masculine and a feminine sign.
And we go by the ancient rulerships. Yeah. There are some modern rulerships, but for today we're just going to be talking about the ancient rulerships, which just deal with the visible planets, not the outer planets. The outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and we're going to talk about them on another time.
Right. And the concept is in astrology is actually called the dignities. How is the planet dignified? And we will work our way out from Mercury. Now Mercury, of course, the messenger of the gods, has two signs. It's got Gemini, which is the masculine one, the one with the twins, and the other one is Virgo. And there's a certain real relationship between these two. I mean, it's funny, you will go to places and find a lot of Virgos and Geminis working in the same place. They like the same kind of businesses.
Well, and so Mercury is about communication. And these two signs are great communicating signs. I think most people are familiar with the fact that communication can be strained when Mercury goes retrograde. It's
Yes.
kind of like, holding his hand too tight in a toy store or something
Yeah.
like that. But they're both cerebral kinds of signs to a certain extent,
Yeah.
having to do with the nervous system and the brain and the way we communicate. You know, Mercury in Gemini is more interested in communicating what it thinks to you. And in Virgo, it's more interested in getting the conversation going between
Receiving information in.
and receiving. Exactly.
And as we go through the 12 through the 12 signs and the and the rulership, you'll find that the masculine sign related to each planet, it tends to be the more overt, the more
Externalized.
externalized, and the feminine one tends to be the more internalized.
So moving on to the rulerships of Venus, her masculine rulership is the sign of Libra, and the feminine rulership is the sign of Taurus.
Right. Now, Libra is about partnership, and it's traditional that the man proposes to the woman, right? And then the woman can either accept or say, not so much. So, but the other side of it is Taurus, and Taurus is an earth sign, and it's kind of the good earth. It's all the wonderful foods, it's all the wonderful fabrics and the wonderful colors and the flowers, and it has to do with, and this is one of the reasons why women traditionally were the people who controlled the foods of the family, but also many times controlled the money of the family too.
And definitely the receiving end
Yeah,
of
exactly.
the Venus energy, because it appreciates beauty. It's something that you take in. It appreciates food. It's something that you take in. Where Libra has to do with creating balance, so it's a creative energy.
Where masculine side of it, men are many times prized for their physical aggressiveness and their strength. Women are oftentimes prized for their beauty.
And even though they are called masculine and feminine, to call them just men and women
Right.
or is not really correct, because they are just opposite ends of the same energy, expressing in either a yang or a yin way, either receptive
Yeah.
or dynamic. So now we're ready to move on to Mars, who also has two rulerships, one masculine, one feminine. The masculine rulership of Mars is Aries, and the feminine rulership of Mars is Scorpio.
Yes. And Aries is the springtime. It's when the energy is coming up out of the earth. Scorpio is near the end of the year. It's really the end of, it's the transition from late fall. And it has a lot to do with how we as a group use power, as we kind of gather our resources for the winter time.
You can actually express the dynamic and the receptive by, Aries energy is the sprouting of the plant, and then when it decays and retracts back into the earth, that's the Scorpio energy. So you can see that right there, the yin and the yang of it.
As you store things away in their secret places. And Scorpio is always about secrets, and it's about where are you putting your food, where are you hiding your resources.
Or simply hidden under the earth,
Exactly.
waiting to sprout again the next spring
Exactly.
in Aries.
And then after Mars, we have Jupiter. And Jupiter is, the largest planet in the solar system, and the masculine energy for that is Sagittarius. It's a very expressive energy. It's very athletic. And then the feminine rulership of that is Pisces, which is a very spiritual energy.
And again, receptive.
Yes.
It's intuitive and it's emotional and it's idealistic. And these are all things that are not very dynamic adjectives to describe an action. Whereas in Sagittarius rules the muscle. So you can see where it's really an active-based energy.
Yeah. Now, Saturn is the restrictor, whereas Jupiter expands, Saturn restricts. The masculine ruler of that is Aquarius, and the feminine rulership of that is Capricorn. And modern astrologers many times will actually equate Aquarius to Uranus, and they'll equate Pisces to Neptune, and Scorpio to Pluto. This was a misunderstanding. This was basically because at the time when this information was becoming available again and when they were starting to translate the materials, they really didn't understand how the set of dignities were designed, and they were based upon a geometric relationship that exists within the circle of the horoscope. and it has to do with how you might say, the spiritual architecture of our world. But when you understand this, you understand that each of these visible planets, and these are the planets you can see without a telescope, have these polarities. And these other planets are, to a certain extent, outliers. They are beyond the point that you can see with your naked eye. And they're big generational planets. For instance, Pluto is 260 or 70 years to go around the sun. That's a slow transit. That's not like something that we feel on a personal basis.
Exactly. That energy is not accessible to us on a daily basis. We have to really look back over a protracted period of time to see what that energetic signature really meant from start to finish for a complete cycle. So the more personal planets are the ones that we can, as you said, see without a telescope.
No, your Saturn takes 28 years to go around, and when you get to the 28 years, you get to what's called your Saturn return. For people even in ancient times, many people experienced major components of that, but Uranus, that's about 84 years. Well, at that time in the past, most people never made it to 84 years.
Nobody's really had a calculated, anticipated lifespan of that amount of time either. So it's not an expectation of the universe, at least until we evolve a little bit further in our health structures.
Now, each one of these planets also has what's called an exalted sign. And it means that when that planet is in a different sign, there's a particular sign where it is treated like an honored guest. For instance, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And Saturn is exalted in Libra. And when you combine these together, you get these wonderful geometric shapes, which we call the sacred triangles. And we actually use in our geomantic and feng shui work.
Exactly.
And they're very, very powerful. Now, the sun rules Leo. The moon rules Cancer, and they have exaltations as well. The sun is exalted in Aries, the moon is exalted in Taurus. And these are very strong relationships. And traditionally it was believed that the sun and moon both ruled
both of those signs, Leo and Cancer.
Leo and Cancer.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful system, and we hope you find this illuminating.
So don't worry, there won't be a test. We'll see you next time.